Hello, I'm James William Moore, and on today's episode of Lattes Art, presented by J Squared Atelier, we're sitting down with David Deighton, artist, educator, entrepreneur, father, world traveler, and the creator of Triptych Dialogue, an art experiment built around a question that feels especially urgent right now. How do we talk to one another again about politics? David comes from a background as an art dealer and the builder of a successful art business, but what makes his work especially compelling is the way he's taken the experiment and turned it outward, using art not just as an object to look at, but as a tool for connection, transformation, and community. For the last 6 years, David has been creating public art experiences in some pretty unexpected places, inviting strangers to stop, listen, engage across difference, and look for common ground. His work touches on subjects a lot of people would rather avoid, especially politics and division, but he's not interested in shouting matches or point scoring. He's interested in communication, healing, and finding better ways for people to connect in a world that keeps pushing us further into digital echo chambers. It's thoughtful work, brave work, and honestly, deeply human work. So go grab your coffee and settle in. And please welcome David Deighton. So David, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate this, and I'm really excited to get into the conversation. So everybody kind of gets a better feel of who you are and what it is you're doing. Can you give us a little background about what it is you are doing?
If I were to know very much about myself, it would be easier, but I'll see what I can do. Today's story is, I see myself as a political activist, an environmentalist, constantly redefining myself, and an artist, lifetime artist. Of course, all the social division I'm seeing in my home country right now, the United States, where I'm living, and I'm originally from France, and where I'm seeing over there too, made me want to explore using different means why the taboo subject of politics, why some people don't want to talk about politics. And so it brought me 6 years ago to find which type of public space I could use, right, and enter and engage with the public, with strangers that would usually not come into a gallery or to a designated space. And after a little while, that brought me, as an example, into free speech areas in national parks, which are open to all, usually where you see religious people bringing, Bibles and all this stuff for conservation. I bring a piece of artwork to that space, engage with the public, and I ask them 3 non-confrontational political questions. I record their voices. I install an art installation. I have people engage with it and all these things. And I explore what that means. And it's around not just the taboo, but also our echo chambers, our point of view, the cocoon that we live in. What does that look like? And have people explore that. So really, I have the public do the artwork in a sense. I just create a presentation, and then they enter it, and they engage, and I actively listen to what they have to say. And I hear a lot of different things.
Oh, I bet. And this feels like it's more than just an art installation, in that you're actually doing kind of a performance. Like, this is allowing, I'm seeing the artists that activate in public that are getting people involved. Do you find that easy to do?
So what I find harder to do is to make it look that it's not a performance, right? To be in the space so I can mirror whoever's going to show up, to be there and make them feel comfortable. Right? Because it's unusual, right? Let's say you're in a national park, and then all of a sudden there's an abstract sculpture or something that's not supposed to be there. That's going to draw in a certain type of person. I want to draw in all different types, especially the ones of people that I might disagree with politically. I want to get triggered. That's what I want to do. I want to get triggered by what they say. I want to be in that space. I want to feel the pain and the discomfort that it is to hear things that I don't want to hear, as an exercise, as a practice. I'll wear my cowboy hat. I'll have my hiking clothes on or whatever. I try to look like I fit in, depending on which state I'm in. And it's interesting. And it's never, I expect to find a certain type of public, and then it's not that at all. We can't judge people by what they're wearing. So I hear very unusual responses, and I'm in that space. Yeah, so it is definitely a performance, but it's improvisation.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because you started off by saying you ask
Mm.
questions that are non-confrontational,
Mm.
and you have individuals that we really can't judge how they look, what they're wearing, as to what they believe.
Mm.
And how does that come together? Like, how have you, one, found questions that aren't confrontational? And then how do you see it reacting with these individuals that we may have prejudged based on how they look, who they're hanging with, what they're wearing?
Yeah. So at the beginning, like let's say in the first year, I'm in my 6th, 7th year now. I was full of judgment, full of triggers, all this stuff. I was, and I had my own questions. I was experimenting questions and found that whatever I used would trigger others. So I took a structuralist approach to it and took the questions and went straight to the linguist. So I have some friends that are linguists and teachers in communication. I said, okay, I'm having trouble here. My questions are they're kind of targeting a certain element. They say something about me, and I don't want that. I want them to be neutral as possible.
Right.
With people could feel comfortable saying that. And they came up with 3 questions. I'll just share them for what they are right now, just the 3 in a row, if that's okay with you.
Yes,
and
please.
And they ended up being these, and I've been using them consistently, always the same 3 questions. And is, how would you describe the political system of the United States of America?
Okay.
And off they go, they describe what, whatever they have to say about the political system. And, it's not too hard. It's whatever comes up in your mind. And the second one is describe your feelings or reactions to the current state of U.S. politics. Now we're getting more into the emotions, and how people feel about it. Often that response is kind of linked to the first one, right?
Yeah.
So that, but they do it anyway. And the third one is a game where you finish the sentence, kind of like a game where you finish the sentence, and I say politics in the United States, blank, and then they answer that. And every step of the way, I've noticed that they're defining more and more their ideas through those 3 questions. And I'm just listening. I'm trying to regulate that myself as well, like not to, I have to say this next. Oh, they said this, I must ask them this next. No, just to be there using all my senses. And that's where I get triggered, and like seeing where I get triggered, what it is, what it was that made me upset with what they said or whatever. I try to be there for them, give them a space just for them to be able to say something that other people never ask them, the taboo subject of politics, and kind of get that going. And that's really cool, because now they're like, there's this trust element that comes in. I trust them, they trust me. We're leaning into one another. We're having a really kind of intimate moment. Right. And at the end, I said, well, what I want, can you give me one word that kind of brings it all together? Like, well, what do you mean by one word? Is that, well, just the word that comes to mind kind of brings everything, all your answers together in the one word. That's super hard, right? You got to bring it down to one word. And so they give me a word. And it's often the contrary of all the list of complaints they've had about the state of affair in politics. It's supposed to be one of hope on the left or on the right. They have this vision of there's something better at the end coming up. So it's often the word hope, which is interesting. Other times it's word like, bullshit, crap, or whatever, some words come up. But it's true. It's like the essence of it. Well, I know from experience that they'll take off. I recorded their voice, and they'll come back later on and say, it's no longer that word. It's this word. It's cohesion or something, or it's republic or whatever. And so they've been thinking about it. And I've been doing this in the national park, which is open to all artists. We can all go there.
Right.
It's open. We can use them, and I highly recommend everybody go out there and we, invest these spaces, which can be absolutely fantastic and have great, great exposure. And well, that's another subject. Anyway, they talk about that one word, so they're thinking about it, and they've been talking about it with probably their friends and family as they were off on a hike, or they were off walking in nature in a different state of mind. And where it's brought me today is Not just the fact of actively listening, of practicing that is initiating conversations with strangers as a political tool that we can use whenever the opportunity arises, right? Maybe with a family member that we no longer speak to because they voted for him or whatever. And we
Right.
it's the emotion. So I find, and at the end of the conversation, if I feel compelled to do so, I'll tell them, I disagree, I disagree with everything you said, except you said it's chaotic, you're angry, you're sad. And whatever that word is, whatever that emotional bridge is, I tell them that. I'll tell them, you know what, I'm angry too. Or I'll tell them this, I'm that libtard or commie that you were complaining about, right? I'll magnify it, but I'm angry too. And usually it ends up with like, oh, well, you're not like the other ones. And I'm like, that's a win. I'm living. I'm like, okay, great. So now they got a story, and the story is I met this commie liberal or whatever. National Park is an artist, I don't know, but he was different, and he brought up these questions. And people from that story, you create a story, and then they're more likely to use it, right? Than all the theory behind bridging and coming together or whatever. That's what I do, emotion.
It's interesting too, because without these conversations, we can't come together, no matter what the topic is. And because things have become so polarized, many of us don't hear what the other side is saying. And you're getting into this kind of gut part of it where you're finding out what makes them angry, or what they see as broken. And that may not be far off from what you see as broken. And now suddenly we have common ground between these polar opposites in thinking that we can talk. We can say, yes, I agree with you on this. I don't come from it from the same angle, but at least we can start to figure out, yes, it's broken. How do we fix it? And it feels too like you're stripping away a lot of the noise, the echo, you called it the echo chamber, that are those sound bites that all of us use. What happens when we don't use those sound bites? What happens when we use our own words? And you're finding that with these conversations, aren't you?
You nailed it. You nailed it. That really is it. I think that, and we all recognize that. That's what's so cool, is that if you strip away to make it as simple as possible, it resonates with other people, that they find that, yes, it's a necessary thing that we all need to do. It can, I remind people, hey, it's going to have to be on offline, not on our digital devices with likes and stuff, when we're all inside of that, our own echo chamber with our own point of view, that the algorithm serves us all the time. And also reminding people that, it's painful to take that step. That's okay. And it doesn't have to be one of superlatives, of outrage, because if you're listening, puts people off guard. What are they going to do? What are you going to do if the other person is listening in without telling you what they think? Maybe at the end saying, it's all bullshit, but I agree with this. And that works. I mean, but that's just by experimentation. And then, the research says all, correlates with it too, but it takes effort. So then I don't do just to ask the questions. I'll bring in like art installations as well that try to get to the idea of like, what is an echo chamber? Do we have one? Should we enter the other? And all these things, whatever it takes. I mean, I feel rushed in a sense because there's upcoming elections always coming up, and I want to have, that's what I can do. My wife and partner, she'll write letters. She goes to committees and stuff. I hate those. I really hate those. I can't do those.
I'm right there with you.
Oh, but there's something that we know how to do, right? So, you have your own form of expression. We all have these different ways. So there's, all these facets, right? We're coming off from all different angles. But one is action, right? We need to act or non-action by not speaking, by listening, but doing something. And I think that's what I found extremely empowering for me, because I felt I can't get anything, I'm not, what am I doing here? I'm not going to get as much influence on other people's facts or opinions that I want. And I realized I can't really do that, but I can bridge. And that right there has a lot of strength. And so I've been going with that. And it's been a lot of fun, because not only do I get to be outside and experience the elements, I get to meet a lot of interesting people that I never would have spoken to Because I had a point of view that I of dislike maybe to certain groups that I didn't want to hang out with, and now I'm spending a little bit of time with them and finding that okay, yeah, they're Nazis, but they're all right. There they are.
Now, you mentioned that you
I was a
bring.
bit hard there, but I do feel I do think that sometimes.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
Mhm.
I think both sides do, right?
Yeah.
We
Yes.
we
Yes.
we see it as the enemy, and we label it
Mm,
as the enemy, so that we have an object to focus our anger, wrath, hate, whatever
mm,
at,
mm,
and that stops the conversation. And
mm,
so I think it's interesting. I'm going to want to come back to this
mm,
in a minute
mm,
about you use the word trigger. But
mm,
before we go down that path, I want to back up a second and I want to
mm,
ask, you're bringing like abstract sculpture and such into
mm.
this space that you're asking the questions. Is there a specific purpose that art is there? Is it interactive that you want them to touch, feel, engage with? Or is it the type of thing when we go into a gallery or museum and we're observing it and being asked, what
Mm.
does this make you feel?
Right. So there's different ones. So there's more the performance piece, two empty chairs, one's Republican, Democrat. They
Mhm.
shouldn't be there. They're facing one another. Conversation's not taking place. Should somebody sit there? I mean, I blend in with the crowd as they look at stuff, and then I can hear what they have to say, which I usually don't get to do, except at a gallery opening or something. And even that, they know you're it. So, but here you get a lot of feedback. So that's more of a performance aspect of it. I'll jump in. Other ones have been using the words that were given, the hundreds of words that were given to me. I will. One was like a quilt with all the names on it in series of nines, one after the other, chronologically, hundreds of them. And people wonder, what are these words, right? But I bring them out as like they're the weight on my shoulders, and I bring them out. Another one that I like to talk about is it was on the Grand Canyon Rim. There's a free speech area, an amphitheater right there at Mathers Point. I tell for everyone, if you can get that spot, it overlooks the whole Grand Canyon. There's seating for 200 people. And I put a museum stand with a sculpture in the middle on top of it with the plexiglass on the top as the case.
Mhm.
And, people come up, look at it like, what's that? And I come up, well, I'll tell them, well, that right there, that sculpture in the middle. And so it's an invitation, right? At that moment, I can talk to people. I'll come up and I'll say, well, that right there is a representation of me. It's a representation of you. It's just a representation of something. I'm not really concerned with what's inside. I'm concerned with the glass case around it. And they're like, what? What you mean? What do you mean? No, the plexiglass. Do you see the case that's on top of it? And so why? Okay, that's interesting. I said, well, yeah, that to me, that's like our worldview. That's our echo chamber. It's I'm the statue inside. That's my worldview. It's often much more limited than we think it is. We think, oh, it's so expansive, and there it is. And like, you could see their eyes. They go down to the side. They're thinking. They're in another space. And then I pull out like gimmickry in a sense. I have a little spice jar with a little toy inside, and it's glass. And I say, "Oh, look at this guy! He's got another echo chamber. I'm interested, and it's much more narrow. It just happens to have he has like a Nazi salute because I can't get the toy in without him having an arm up in the air. But anyway, it's it's very odd. And then I say, well, how does this person and this representation how do they communicate offline together? How does that happen? And I just leave it at that. Often people just start thinking about it and they talk about it. And it's like, well, what's an echo chamber? Do I have one? And they'll talk to their friends and all this stuff happens like without fail. I mean, I got to mention that after 6 years, I have not had a single confrontation. That's why I know they're non-confrontational, because it's all about listening and asking the right question, right? And being in the right space. I have not had somebody be upset. Like, I'm not going to talk about politics or whatever. They're curious. They want to know, how can that possibly be non-confrontational?
Right.
Politics in its very nature is confrontational.
Right.
And so by example, and that's where it's leading me to, is this space. By this example, I can see that we can have these conversations. And it's kind of a role that we have as artists to maybe put out and create these spaces, invent new spaces that other people can use and create that story back again, I like to create stories. So they go, oh, I met this artist at a national park that I visited. So when they talk Grand Canyon, it's like, oh, yeah, I was at the Grand Canyon. I saw something different. You saw a bear, but guess what I saw? I saw this. And then their conversation starts and these things happen. And then I hear people coming back to me. It's like, oh, I know, I've heard about you. So these things are taking place. I love to create the stories. It's still new to me, creating stories, this power of stories. And then I let other people create the narratives to it that they bring on their own journeys and create other performances with other people. Maybe just in a small exchange with somebody. That's where I want to be.
I'm listening to all of this and I'm feeling that because of the way you've approached this, and these people, how you're saying they come back and they go, you know what, I'm changing what I said. I think it's this now. I think it's incredible that you're using this as art, that you're planting seeds of sorts to not necessarily get them to change their opinion, but to actually think about what they think about. I think too many times we, just talking those echo chambers, we just keep repeating what we hear. Do we believe it? And if we believe it, to what level do we believe it? Or have we been told that's what we have to believe? Because I need to be like everybody else. It's around me and everybody in my world thinks exactly this way. So I have to think that way too. And I'm finding this such an amazing, I hope I run into you sometime at a park because I would love to actually engage with this because I get the sense you and I are going to be on the same page politically, but I think even in that instance, I'm going to walk away into this beautiful area that I'm going to be communing with nature, that I'm going to be thinking about our conversation and coming back with, I've thought more about it, and I've either strengthened my resolve of why I believe the way I do, or I'm going to have a different word for it. That's my word.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the public is the one put on the podium, if you like. Yeah. They're the piece of art. They're the one that's out there and it's constantly evolving. Right. And so because of the silence, because of it's not in the sense of silence, because of the listening, of being there and leaning in, giving them importance. Right. I have people that cry sometimes. Now that had never happened. Like nobody's ever looked at one of my paintings and like cried. No. So, but it's because and it always comes down to this because nobody asked them those questions. Nobody took the time to listen to them and give them the space. Unless you're online and you think everybody's going to care about which way you put that little thumbs up or down or what you said, feeding the algorithm. But in person, then the stuff comes out. Like there's this form of like trauma and it comes out left or right, by the way, which I find interesting. Yeah. And it makes awkward situations. I repeated to my friends is that when the story of it, this woman started crying because her son voted this way and they're no longer talking. Not just about politics, is like they split up. Like, nah, you think this, forget it. I was about the age of her son. Her husband comes up, sees her crying, says, "What did you do to my wife? What did you say to my wife?"
Oh, yeah.
I was like, actually nothing. I just asked her questions. She backed me up, and the whole thing calmed down. And then he was in the conversation. So that kept on going, which is interesting. It's a very emotional aspect. We connect with emotions and stories rather than the facts or opinions that we each hold. That's been my takeaway. And that's where I'm going into, which is a comfortable space to go into. You don't have to think of arguments or counter arguments or what they said and this and that is, okay, all right, you're angry, I'm angry. You have hope, I have hope, whatever it is.
And I think it's interesting because you use the word argument because an argument, you come ready to defend. But when we're in a conversation means two or more people talking and listening. And you've added that element in to this artwork. It's listening. That takes me back. I want to go back to trigger.
Okay.
You made a comment a bit ago that some of the things that get said, you hear it, it triggers you. Is it triggering you, like in the sense that it's negative, or is it challenging you in what your belief or thought is?
Yes. Yes, it is a trigger is a challenge, but okay. So here's a like a technique that came just out of experimentation. Okay, so I'm actively listening. You're supposed to use all your senses. I was really kind of troubled. Okay, well, all right, I can listen. I can see. Um,
Hmm.
what smell and taste like? I'm not going to go taste someone or
Yeah.
smell them. Maybe that's going to be a bit weird. But so I brought that back. I said, well, I don't know how to answer that question. So I brought it back to the public. And so I've had all these hundreds of words. And so let's say the next one on the list is chaos. And I said, well, I asked people like, what does chaos taste like? What does or what does chaos smell like? And people immediately go in that same space, like eyes off to the side, thinking off, and they're in another domain, they're in another dimension, if you like. They say, oh, I never thought of that. Should I even think about that? Does that even make sense? People usually answer that. Chaos feels like, tastes like granola or something, or I don't know what. They come up with all these interesting things. And so I use that now. When I get triggered, I immediately think, oh, what does that taste like? So I disassociate myself to all the rest of the thought pattern that goes with it. And I just think, oh, okay, that smells like, it tastes like sour grapes. Okay. So I'm back in. Okay. What is this person saying again? Yes, I'm in.
Yeah.
It's just a peripheral way. I think as artists, we often look on the side through different filters, eliminate them, take out walls, we rearrange things. And so that's helped me personally to be able to listen in to the things that may be offensive to me. And of course, I'll wonder why that was offensive to me later. Hence, if I'm in a national park, I try to put in 2 weekends. If I can take that block of time, and I'll go for a backcountry camping. I'll go hike for several days and process everything that went on, because it's intense. You're talking to a lot of people in a busy park, especially if you have something weird enough that people are going to come in and spark their interest.
Now, when you and I got introduced originally and had a conversation, you were in Colombia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you just mentioned before we started this conversation that you're headed off out of country again. Do you do these sorts of engagements when you go out of country like that? Or are you just activating this sort of conversation in art here in the US?
I try to when I'm abroad. The thing is that it's about the space, right? So I have these spaces, public parks, national parks, the occasional meeting in a grocery store. You overhear a conversation, coffee shop, whatever, a T-shirt, whatever those things are. Those are all opportunities. So the cultural contexts are different. I also have these other forms of projects where I take the 3 questions and I take them in and I put them in a ceramic piece I make and I bury it or I hide it out in nature. Because of course the questions, you can also change politics for religion or whatever, and you can change the name United States to whatever country. So they do apply. But as I'm traveling, I'll make sculptures that I place in different places. They have some symbolic meaning to it. The direct interactions with people. When I was in Colombia, it was landmines. The second largest percentage of landmines in the world after Afghanistan. It's a bit awkward burying stuff, right?
Sure.
In a country that has such a heavy history of over 50 years of armed conflict and all these landmines. Each country is different for me. And what I explore. Yeah, I've tried, of course, in France, because I'm French, there's always the language issue as well. People are very open to discuss political issues, but maybe not in the street. So we're in a public space. So there's that aspect. How do you present that, the space, right? That there's an exploration of that. But I certainly don't feel the same pressure that I do as to act here in the US, because that's where I live. And they are the superpower, if you want. So for wherever I go, the influence of what's happening in this country. It's like, why live in a state full of Democrats for me when maybe I should be living in the next state over and immerse myself to have the greatest influence in people with very different views than mine. I don't have that type of energy. I like my bubble. So I go, I take it in chunks and I go there, mentally prepare myself and come back to breathe.
It's funny you say that, because I live in California and I live there because I love the weather. I love the Mexican food. I love the people. And do I travel elsewhere? Yes. But it's like what you're saying. I like what I have here.
Right.
I'll go
And that's
visit that.
okay.
Yeah. And come back.
Yeah. We got to be, if we're going to do something painful, we got to be strong to get there. Otherwise, we're
There
a
you
wreck.
go.
Yeah. And yeah, we got to be at our best.
I think it's interesting what you're doing because many artists, me included in this bucket, we create an artwork that's a statement. I have a voice that I recognize that allows me to share my opinion, my idea, my something on whatever it is. And with some of my work, it's clearly political. I think it's interesting from what you're creating isn't about the statement, it's about the listening. And that becomes like the media. What the artwork ends up being is hearing. Am I off on that?
You're not off. We're on the same page. However, I wasn't like that before. This is just, it's been transformative for me. It's transformed who I am in so many ways. I was one to do my art anonymously, never put my own name out there, and hide behind different personas. And it was quite violent and angry in a lot of ways. And it's like, here it is. You got to take it. Right. And when I put myself out there, then it was me. And there I am. And over the last few years, it has changed me to like listening to things I don't want to hear about. I didn't really want to do that before. And then being there for others and acting like, okay, I'm giving to others, giving you my time and my space in order to do this. I mean, it's just the process. It's an ongoing project, but it's not who I was 7 or 8 years ago. I was a very, very different person. So it's and it's brought so much weight off of my shoulders. It's crazy, like the anger and stuff. It's like I already lost my hair, so it's okay. It's like, it hasn't grown back, but
it's interesting though that when you're doing something like this, it's almost like the humanity comes back into the character of you. I mean, that's an incredible thing because that anger, right? We start holding on to anger and it eats at us. And then that kind of helps us get into an echo chamber, right? And now that cycle begins that we spiral into. And now we're not listening to someone who's not talking the way I want to hear it.
Yeah. That's where that pain and discomfort comes from, right? You got to put yourself in a situation that you don't really want to be in. It's very fruitful when you can take out the noise, and the noise is the one from yourself, from inside your brain, and all your belief systems and all that. It really changes a lot of things. I mean, my core beliefs are the same, but my view of others has transformed, and as I said, the weight is enormous. I'm now one to I don't avoid talking to people. I teach in classrooms as well, which I never would have done before. I find myself doing volunteer work, picking up other people's trash, and without like, oh, you threw a cigarette down, like, rah, 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 rah. Especially in France, I get really pissed off when everybody's cigarette butts. But now I just pick it up. It's like picking up somebody else's dog crap.
Yeah.
I don't want to pick it up. You should pick it up. But then everybody leaves crap everywhere. If you pick it all up, less people are likely to leave it behind. That type of story.
Yeah. Well, and
it's transformative.
We become together again.
The unity, the humanity.
Yeah.
That's big. Yeah, that's big. That's really changed. That's really changed a lot for me.
So, David, what created the origin of this? Like, what moved you from the type of art you were doing to what you're doing now? What was the catalyst?
I bring it down to just one single episode, like, an epiphany. Victoria and Albert Museum in London, a triptych, quite bad condition from the mid-1300s, with half of the imagery missing, washed away from time. Half of the images are missing. Several images all throughout the panel, 3 panels, all these religious imagery on it, and half of it was missing. So I was like, what's the story there? All of the stuff that's missing, I fill it in. I fill it in constantly in my, like, oh, I see how somebody is. They must think this way. No, to fill it in, I need to go ask people in person. From that moment, that's where it started. From that singular piece, I called my project Triptych Dialogue. I started just that very day. I was like, that's what I'm going to call it. It's a dialogue about this triptych. And it's from that piece of artwork. Whoever that guy was, Van Barthold, German artist, mid 1300s, know nothing about him. He transformed me through the centuries. And hence, that's maybe why I want to, put things and bury them and hide them in time capsules and talk to people in dialogue from that piece. That epiphany, I was like, that's it, right there. My answers are there. My journey is through this piece. Yeah, that's where it happened. Very powerful. I need to go back and, I look at the pictures sometimes that I took, but I like to get back to the presence of this piece and spend a day just looking at it and, pondering the journey I've been through since that piece I've seen. Yeah.
Art for me, even as a child, I loved looking at art. I loved spending time with it. And I may not always understand what it was trying to tell me, but I love how what you're talking about, it can trigger us to change. It can trigger us to ask different questions. It can put us in a place that we may discover we don't know everything about ourselves. And I think it's incredible what you're doing because you are taking this out, which I love this part, into the public. There's no gate stopping someone from getting to you and engaging with this art to find something out about themselves. Yeah, I do hope I run into you in a park at some point.
In a park, yeah. And I want to explore other areas too, because in a sense, a park is limiting, right? The ones that are so popular, those you have a much greater encounter, right? Because of the social economic factors, demographics, and all this stuff of who usually goes to these places. Go to Yellowstone, go to Yosemite, go to Grand Canyon, go see something big that everybody puts on their list of things to see. I want to go to Mount Rushmore. That'll bring a certain demographic too and political ideologies. Gotta go there. I never would have wanted to visit it otherwise, but this is going to be my opportunity. It's finding the space, which is the space. So it's not perfect in the US. Where are public spaces actually? We have parks. Certain type of people go to the parks. Street corners, forget it. People are not going to be interested. They're on the way here. They're driving. They're all in their boxes or whatever. I'd love to go in a mall, but it's a commercial space, so you're not allowed to do whatever you want in there, right? There's a lot of restrictions, there's rules. And in national parks, there are a few, I got to say. They don't want your items being like flammable or hurting anyone.
Sure.
Yeah, don't bring a flamethrower.
You're talking malls and street corners and that sort of thing. And there's a commercial aspect, and we don't think of that much, but commercial doesn't require freedom of speech. And finding that space, that freedom of speech, right? First Amendment, that we can stand there and say something. Those spaces are becoming fewer, which makes what you're doing that much more important because it's how we're getting this conversation going.
Yeah, if we want to protect art speech, in a sense, we should get out there and use these spaces. The superintendent of parks has to provide a space, and often it's not a very nice one. They think, David's got a political activity with art. I'm going to put him to the back of the parking lot where nobody goes. Okay, that's an interesting space to spend a day and reflect on. Oh, I'm back over here. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But then you can have a conversation with administration there and, say, you're protecting also not only endangered species, but another one, First Amendment, free speech is also an endangered species of sorts.
Yes.
And remind them that. It's to exercise. Some are very receptive, other ones not, but they have an obligation to provide the space. And often it's written in what's called a compendium or something like this. It's a paper, and they designate an area and how big it is, and these things. Just go with it, see what it is, get a feel for it, explore the space, and see what encounters you have. I encourage everyone to do it. Poetry, anything, theater, do whatever you want. Yeah, bring it in. We need to fill those spaces.
What are you hoping for out of this, out of what you've engaged with? And is there any place that's coming up that we could mention we may find you if we're traveling around the US?
Right. So that's part of me exposing myself some more. So I'm building a website. That's in the makes, where I'll say where I'm going next. Myself is out there, but I've been anonymous as to where I'm going next. I'm on at Triptych Dialogue on YouTube. People can see different experiments that I've done and listen to hundreds of people answer those 3 non around confrontational political questions, see videos of the installations, of some of the installations. The outcome of what I'm expecting is change to solidify our the structure on which our democracy is built on, and it to be more democratic, with individuals acting as political actors with a lot of power, rather than being told from up above what you're allowed to do, when you're allowed to do it, what you can do, go vote twice or every 2 years or whatever. To get rid of that narrative, the new narrative is we can act as individuals, and we're strong a lot more than we're told we are. We are strong people.
David, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a very enlightening conversation for me, and challenges me too at how I spark conversation with art. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Lattes Art, presented by J Squared Atelier. A huge thank you to David Deighton for joining us and sharing more about his work, his journey, and the powerful ways he's using art to create connection, conversation, and real human engagement in a world that could use a whole lot more of all three. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to David's work and to learn more about Triptych Dialogue, his art experiment in bridging divides and rethinking how we talk to one another. And don't forget to give some love to our new sister podcast, Art Happens, the divine mess of art history. Your destination for quick art history lessons with a lot more sass, personality, and delicious chaos than the ones you probably got in school. Until next time, this has been James William Moore. Stay curious, stay creative, and keep the conversation going.